بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وآله وصحبه وأزواجه وذريته أجمعين. اللهم ربنا أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. اللهم أرنا حقائق الأشياء كما هي ربنا زدنا علما وعملا وإخلاصا يا رب العالمين. اللهم انصر أولياءك في مشارق الأرض ومغاربها، اللهم انصرهم على عدوك وعدوهم إنك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم فرج عنا وعن إخواننا في مشارق الأرض ومغاربها، اللهم نفس كربنا وكربهم وثبت أقدامنا وأقدامهم والطف بنا وبهم يا أرحم الراحمين يا رب العالمين. والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا مولانا محمد وبارك وسلم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين آمين آمين يا رب العالمين. So December is the month when the Soviet Union was founded, and it was the same month in which it actually disintegrated. It seemed relevant to look at the founding fathers of Soviet Union and their thought. So let's look at Lenin. So we'll start with this dictionary entry, and then we'll, if we need it, we'll move on to other relevant works. The best recent account I've read of Lenin life and thought is Christopher Reed's called Lenin, a biography or something like that. So probably we should read some of it at some point as well. Okay, so Lenin, pseudonym of Vladimir Illich Ulyanov, born Simbirsk, now Ulyanovsk, don't know how to pronounce that, 22nd of April 1878, died 21st January 1924. So he was just 54 years old. Wow, Gorky. Obviously, a genius of his kind. Obviously his genius was dedicated to Shar, not Khair. But we are just here to understand his thought. Unquestionably the most influential political leader and theorist of Marxism in the 20th century. Lenin revitalized its theory of revolution, that Marxist theory of revolution. So in this respect, I think his little book on state and revolution is important. By stressing the centrality of class struggle led by a tightly organized party. And the importance of party is also, I think, Lenin's contribution. Centrality of party in making revolution. The revolution is not something spontaneous, but something you create in a way. And the party, the vehicle of that. And this is a professional revolutionary party. So he elaborated a theory of imperialism, and that's also important. And that his theory of imperialism is based on liberal sources, for example, Hobson. And that also tells you that there isn't too much of a daylight between Marxism and liberalism. Both are I mean, obviously they're very different, but ideologies, but both are ideologies of capitalism. That's why it's not accidental that every now and then they have, since the French Revolution, they had many times worked together. I mean, they have infighting like all ideologies within a way of life or a deen have, but they also join hands from time to time. He elaborated a theory of imperialism as the final stage of capitalism, preparatory to an international proletarian revolution establishing and maintaining. So this is calling international revolution, not so nations are not abolished, at least not at this stage. Proletarian revolution establishing and maintaining itself through force in a establishing and maintaining itself through force in a transitional dictatorship of the proletariat. That's also an important concept. And that's true democracy because proletariats are majority in this thinking. In a way, it is prescient because proletariat are the majority, although they don't know that what their real interests are. So their class in, to use the Hegelian term, they are class in itself, but they are not class for itself. And the party is there to basically make them realize through education and all those things that they're class for. Their consciousness, develop their consciousness from class in itself to class for itself. But what I was saying was that proletarians are the real subject of capital. But what the Marxist-Leninist thought probably doesn't recognize is that at the end everybody becomes a proletariat or the subject of capital in a capitalist system. And through that, so there's no class. So the class and class struggle vanishes because there's no other class in capitalism. And that's the fundamental weakness of Leninist Marxist thought as well. Because it doesn't realize that class in capitalism, classes eventually vanish, not in the way in which Marx predicted or Lenin predicted, but in the way in which probably liberalism foresees. Everybody is the subject of capital. There are managers, they are the subject of capital. There are laborers, they are the subject of capital. The owners of capital. Ownership of capital becomes fictitious because the real owner is capital itself. And they own managers as well as the labor. So in a way, Marx and Lenin's thought foresees it, but also doesn't see it in the way it should be seen. In the sense that in capitalism, in mature capitalism, in advanced capitalism, in imperialist and post-imperialist capitalism, there are no classes. So there is no class conflict. So that basically disproves Lenin's theory or Marxist theory in general. That's why in the long run Marxism collapses into liberalism, liberal capitalism, or national capitalism, or amalgam of those, as we can see in China right now. Okay. Anyway, so the key concepts in Lenin's are imperialism, revolution, party, and dictatorship of the proletariat. They're all interrelated. Um, yeah. So he led the Bolshevik party, which so the party is not majority. They are Bolshevik. They are minority. Bolshevik mean minority. In the October Revolution of 1917, it established the world's first socialist state. So self-consciously, that was a socialist state, not a communist. So it's a transition. Because communism is totally different. Communism, the classes dissolve. There's no class, so there's no class struggle, so there's no history. So in a sense, Lenin and Marx foresaw that, but not in a way in which they're actually coming true. He led the Bolshevik Party in the October of 1917 and established the world's first socialist state. Through the communist internationals, which he inspired, his views spread throughout the world, serving to define modern communism in opposition to social democracy. Obviously, social democracy also shows the close link between liberalism and Marxism. So it's basically an amalgam of liberalism and Marxism. So that's why sometimes both of them, liberalism and communism, align themselves with it, and other times they oppose it because they want to differentiate themselves from it. Okay, so that was sort of a pithy overall view of Lenin as a thinker. Probably we'll stop here, continue from here next one.